It was a bright Monday morning at Oshodi Under Bridge. The usual chaos hummed, horns blaring, hawkers shouting, Danfo buses screeching to halt. But none of that mattered when the woman in the emerald green gown stepped out of a black Rolls-Royce. Juliana. People paused mid-stride. Conversations died. Even beggars stopped rattling their tins. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she walked slowly, gracefully, toward a man hunched beside a pile of refuse. His beard was tangled and overgrown, his hair matted like old sponge. His coat was brown, stained, and ripped in several places. He folded his arms like someone who'd grown used to protecting himself from the world. That was Sam. Without a word, Juliana went down on her knees on the dirty floor before the homeless man. Gasps filled the air. Phones went up. Wait, wet-in day happen? Someone muttered. She reached into her purse, brought out a sparkling diamond ring, and with tears in her eyes, said loud enough for everyone to hear, I've read your story. I know what they did to you, and I know the world hasn't been fair, but I am here to give you a second chance. Will you marry me? Sam didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared at her as if his soul had left his body. People started gathering. Na play this? A bus driver asked, but Sam did something no one expected. He slowly lifted his hand and pointed not at her, but at her Rolls-Royce. If you're serious, give me that car. The crowd went wild. What? Is this man mad? Homeless, and he's asking for Rolls-Royce. Someone even yelled, he's lost it. But Juliana didn't flinch. Without a word, she stood up, walked to the driver's side, took the car key, returned, and placed it in Sam's hand. It's yours now, she said. And there are many more waiting if we build together. Sam blinked. For the first time in 5 years, a faint smile cracked through his beard. He unfolded his arms and stretched out his hand. Juliana smiled, slipped the ring onto his finger. Cheers. Screams. Phones flashed. People were crying, clapping, and shouting. She opened the door of the Rolls-Royce and guided him in like royalty. And then she turned, looked once more at the stunned faces, and drove off. But how did a billionaire end up proposing to a homeless man by the refuse dump? 5 years earlier, the pain behind her smile. Juliana Obinna was Nigeria's most eligible bachelorette, daughter of the legendary billionaire oil tycoon, Chief Obinna, who owned Obinna Global Resources Limited. She had everything: power, wealth, luxury, respect, except one thing: love. Even her palace-like mansion in Banana Island felt empty. At 28, her heart still cried every night. No one knew she'd stand before her mirror and whisper, Daddy, I kept my promise. But it broke me. Before his death, Chief Obinna, weak and bedridden, had one final wish. Promise me, Juliana, you'll get married. Let me see you settled before I go. Those words pierced her heart. And then came Jonathan, handsome, smooth-talking, introduced by her father's friend. Something about him felt wrong, too shiny, too perfect. But she ignored it. For her father, the wedding was quiet, painful, and unforgettable. A small ceremony held in their grand sitting room. Her father, pale and on a drip, lay smiling weakly on the bed as a pastor joined them in marriage. Juliana and Jonathan held hands over her father's own. Tears streamed down Chief Obinna's cheeks. He died 2 days later after holding his newborn grandson, Johnson, for the first time. 9 months of pretending everything was fine. Juliana should have known. 1 week after the burial, Jonathan vanished. Gone. Disappeared with over $1 million from the company's accounts. The investigators said he had booked a flight to Dubai. And that was the end. He never loved me, she cried one night, rocking baby Johnson in her arms. He only married me. For the money. Lonely nights, silent tears. 5 years passed. Juliana turned 33. Johnson turned 5. He was the only light in her life. Bright, curious, and gentle, just like his grandfather. But even his questions tore her apart. Mummy, when will Daddy come back? She lied at first, then cried, then started looking for answers. Not answers. Hope. That's when she read the story. A full-page feature in a popular magazine. From oil giant to Oshodi, the tragic fall of Nigeria's brightest chemical engineer. Sam, a once celebrated chemical engineer working for a top foreign oil firm, framed by jealous colleagues, accused of sabotage, thrown into prison for 4 years. By the time he came out, everything was gone. His wife Juliet? Gone. Vanished with their daughters, cleared his accounts, sold their Lekki mansion, started a new life abroad. Sam tried. He begged. He screamed. Then he gave up. Ended up at Oshodi, surviving off scraps and memories. But Juliana saw something others didn't. A man who had been through fire and still breathing. A man who once built something big and could do it again. She thought to herself, such a man won't betray me. Not after all that pain. He deserves a second chance. Just like me. And so, she made up her mind. She wore her most expensive gown, grabbed a ring, stepped into her Rolls-Royce, and drove straight to Oshodi. Now, seated inside the Rolls-Royce, the whole world watching the viral video, Sam looked around the luxury interior in disbelief. He hadn't said yes because he wanted a car. He wanted to be sure, to know if she truly meant it. Why me? He asked, voice cracking. Because I see the same pain in your eyes that I've lived with for years, Juliana replied. Because I want someone who knows what it means to lose everything and still love. Sam looked at the car key, then at her eyes, then whispered, okay, I'll marry you. But on one condition. Juliana's heart stopped. What is it? You must promise me that no matter what happens, you'll never leave me the way the world did. She froze, then reached out and held his hand. I swear. And with that, their story began. But what came next would shake everything, even her billion-dollar empire. A week after the shocking proposal under Oshodi Bridge, headlines still blazed across every major blog and news outlet in Nigeria. Billionaire heiress proposes to homeless man. He asked for her Rolls-Royce. Juliana Obinna gives homeless man a second chance. True love or madness? But Juliana didn't care. She wasn't chasing headlines. She was chasing healing for both herself and Sam. A night in Victoria Island. That very day, Juliana took Sam straight to one of the most luxurious hotels in Victoria Island, the Monarch Suites. When the valet opened the door and Sam stepped out, the staff hesitated, a homeless man. But one look from Juliana was enough. They bowed. Inside the royal suite, Sam stood frozen, his shoes still muddy, coat torn at the sleeves. He stared at the golden chandelier, the marble floors, and the king-size bed with trembling lips. This can't be for me, he whispered. Juliana gently placed her hand on his chest. It is, and this is only the beginning. She called in the top stylist in Lagos, a spa team, a private barber, and a doctor. And just like that, the transformation began. The man beneath the dirt. Sam sat in the steaming hot tub, eyes closed, as warm water washed away 5 years of pain, grime, and broken dreams. A skilled barber carefully trimmed his thick beard, cleaned up the edges, and revealed a strong, handsome jawline that had long been hidden. A doctor ran tests, checked his vitals, gave him vitamins, and recommended therapy. Tailors measured his frame for a custom navy blue suit, Italian shoes, and crisp white shirts. When he finally stepped out of the dressing room that evening, Juliana was speechless. Sam, once mistaken for a madman, now stood like the prince he had always been. You look like the man you were always meant to be, she said, eyes glistening. Sam turned to the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. I used to be someone, he muttered. You still are, Juliana whispered. And from now on, the world will see it. Back to the boardroom. Juliana didn't waste time. She called an urgent meeting with her board of directors at Obinna Global Resources Limited. Most of the board were elderly men, all skeptical, conservative, and proud. As they sat in the glass conference room, murmuring about the man from the street, the door opened and Sam walked in, tall, clean, confident, wearing a navy blue suit that fit like it was stitched by angels. Juliana followed behind him, holding a brown envelope filled with credentials. Gentlemen, she began, meet Mr. Sam Uche. He's not just my fiancé. He's also the new lead chemical engineer of this company. The room fell silent. One man cleared his throat. With all due respect, Madam Juliana, are you saying this homeless man is now going to be part of our executive team? Juliana dropped the envelope on the table. Before you say no, please look inside. You'll find his academic records, past achievements, published research, and commendations from 3 foreign oil companies before he was wrongly accused and jailed. They opened it, and their faces changed. The last man to speak now held a page in his hand. He published in the International Journal of Petroleum Chemistry. Juliana nodded. He's the one who developed the efficiency model used by Petroline in 2015. Sam finally spoke. I didn't come here to beg for sympathy. I came to build. Again, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then, one of the oldest members leaned forward and said, Well then, welcome aboard, Mr. Uche, Healing Johnson. While Sam was settling into his new role, something even deeper was happening at home. 5-year-old Johnson had never known a father's embrace. And since Jonathan vanished, he'd been filled with questions and silent heartbreak. That night, as Sam knelt beside his bed to help him wear his pajamas, Johnson looked up shyly and whispered, Are you going to leave too? Sam's heart cracked. He placed a hand on the boy's tiny chest. I will never leave you, Johnson. Not today. Not ever. For the first time, Johnson smiled fully. From that day forward, he called Sam Daddy. 1 year passed quickly. Sam had become a pillar in Juliana's company. Investors returned. Projects expanded. Innovation flowed. And love bloomed between them, real deep love. Not love based on wealth or appearances, but on scars, survival and growth. Then came the wedding. A royal event held at Eco Hotel's grand ballroom. The entire nation watched. Juliana wore a custom diamond-studded gown. Sam wore a velvet white tuxedo. The wedding was broadcast live on television with headlines like, From under the bridge to the altar. Sam marries Nigeria's billionaire heiress. They danced like teenagers. They cried like children. They kissed like people who had finally found their way home. 2 years into their marriage, Juliana went into labor. After hours of pain and prayers, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. They named her Amara, meaning grace. Sam held her in his arms, weeping openly. You are proof, he whispered to her, that love can grow even in ashes. At home, Johnson, now 7, ran to kiss his baby sister, promising to protect her forever. One Saturday afternoon, while Sam worked on a project in the study, Johnson tiptoed in, holding a drawing. It was a plane, badly drawn, but clearly a plane. Daddy, Johnson said, when I grow up, I want to fly. Sam looked at him, surprised. Fly what? Airplanes. I want to become a pilot. Sam smiled, but what Johnson didn't know was that the next 5 years would test that dream in a way no one saw coming. A tragedy was looming, and Sam and Juliana would have to face it head-on. It had been almost 6 years since that unforgettable proposal under the Oshodi underbridge, but the memory still danced fresh in Juliana's heart like a precious melody. Their daughter Amara had just turned 4, and Johnson, now 11, stood tall and bold, every bit a reflection of Sam's strength and Juliana's grace. But his dream to fly never faded. Every evening, while his friends played football, Johnson sat by the window sketching airplanes, cutting out cardboard wings, or reading books on aviation. His room was covered in plane posters. He even named his toy plane Oshodi Jet. One day, Sam walked into his room and found him building a cockpit with carton boxes. Daddy? Johnson smiled. One day, you and Mummy will sit inside my plane, and I'll fly you both to Paris. Sam sat beside him, swallowed hard, and said, And I'll be your proudest passenger, son. The exam that changed everything. Years rolled by. Amara blossomed into a brilliant teenager, sharp, elegant, and full of quiet confidence. Her favorite place was her dad's lab, watching him mix chemicals or design new refinery models. She was naturally drawn to it. At 16, she passed her university entrance examination to study chemical engineering at the University of Nigeria, just like her father once did. That same year, Johnson gained admission into the Nigerian Aviation School. Juliana cried happy tears when she hugged him that morning. Go and make the skies your playground, she whispered. But always remember who you are. Yes, Mummy, he replied. I'm Johnson Uche, the boy who grew from ashes. A sudden setback. Just when life seemed perfect, a storm hit. During Johnson's second year at the aviation school, news broke of a tragic crash involving one of the school's training aircrafts. Though Johnson wasn't on board, one of his closest friends, Michael, had been and didn't make it. The tragedy shook the entire school. Students became afraid. Mothers withdrew their children. Even Juliana broke down one evening, holding Sam tightly. What if we lose him too? What if— No, Sam said firmly. We didn't come this far to live in fear. He's not alone. He's covered. But Johnson struggled. He stopped talking. He stopped drawing. He even missed classes. Juliana and Sam tried everything: therapy, support groups, mentors. But nothing seemed to pull him out of the silent hole he'd fallen into. Until one night, Amara knocked softly on her brother's door. She came in quietly, holding a small framed photo. It was the viral picture of their parents at the Oshodi Underbridge from the day Juliana proposed to Sam. She placed it in his hand. "Do you know why this photo hangs in the main hallway?" she asked softly. Johnson looked at her, his eyes empty. "Because that was the day everything changed," she continued. "That was the day a man who lost everything was asked to dream again. And he did. Now it's your turn, big brother." For the first time in weeks, Johnson spoke. "You really believe I can do it?" Amara smiled. "I don't just believe it. I'll be sitting in your first flight." That night, Johnson picked up his aviation books again and never looked back. He took to the sky. 3 years later, the big day came. Juliana wore a silver lace gown. Sam wore a black suit with a green pocket square, his old color of hope. Amara stood beside them, clapping hard as the announcer called, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our newest certified pilot, Johnson Uche Obinna." He stepped out in his flight uniform, tall, confident, eyes filled with pride and gratitude. Juliana covered her face with both hands, crying uncontrollably. Sam hugged her, whispering, "He did it, Juliana. He really did it." Later that year, Johnson got a job with an international airline company. His first official route, Lagos to South Africa, the doctor in SAT 12A. On his second flight, while attending to passengers mid-air, Johnson offered water to a woman in seat 12A, a young, dark-skinned Nigerian woman with glasses, braided bun, and a soft smile. She was reading a medical journal. "Are you a doctor?" he asked politely. "Yes, Dr. Sandra Ezekwe." Just returning from a conference in Johannesburg, they spoke for hours, shared stories, laughed softly. By the time they landed, Sandra handed him a note with one sentence: "Call me when you're ready to fly again together." Amara's turn to shine. Meanwhile, Amara was breaking records. At just 19, she graduated as the best student in the Faculty of Chemical Engineering. The ceremony was packed. Juliana and Sam were seated at the front, holding hands tightly as their daughter stepped up to receive the award. The dean announced, "For the first time in the school's history, we have a graduate this young, this brilliant, and this driven. Ladies and gentlemen, help me celebrate Amara Uche Obinna." Cameras flashed. Crowds cheered. Sam and Juliana walked up the stage and held her between them. They couldn't stop crying. That moment felt like a full circle, from under the bridge to standing on top of the world. Months after her graduation, Amara attended a medical research conference in Port Harcourt as part of her internship with a top Lagos hospital. There she met George Nwoko, a 27-year-old pharmacist and medical product developer. Tall, humble, and passionate about rural health innovation, they shared ideas over lunch and ended up sharing dreams over phone calls for months. Juliana noticed Amara smiling more. Sam teased her one evening, "So, when do I get to meet the boy who has my daughter giggling at midnight?" Amara blushed. "Maybe soon, Daddy. Maybe very soon." Exactly 1 year later, on a cool December morning, Juliana walked into the living room, only to find Amara and Johnson standing with envelopes in their hands. "Mum, Dad," Johnson said, "we have something to say. We want to get married," Amara added. "To Sandra and George," Johnson continued. On the same day, Amara finished. Sam and Juliana stared at them, mouths open. Juliana dropped the cup in her hand. "On the same day? Are you two serious?" They both nodded, and as tears flooded Juliana's eyes, Sam whispered, "2 children, 1 dream, 2 weddings, 1 day. But no one was prepared for what happened on the wedding day itself, something that almost stopped everything. The wedding of the year was finally here. It wasn't just a wedding, it was 2 weddings in 1 day. Amara and George, Johnson and Sandra. The guest list overflowed with top dignitaries, celebrities, business moguls, and international media. The venue was Golden Bell Estate, an elite garden venue in Ikoyi. Every corner was laced in ivory flowers, glistening chandeliers, and gold-plated decor. There were 2 aisles, 2 stages, and 1 breathtaking vision that had the entire nation talking. Can you believe a woman who once knelt in front of a homeless man under a bridge is now walking her children down the aisle? As a queen, Juliana, radiant in a wine-colored beaded gown, held Sam's arm tightly as they stood, watching their children prepare to walk. Sam was in a sharp white agbada with silver embroidery, his hair neatly trimmed, beard soft, eyes full of pride. But just minutes before the ceremony began, the unthinkable happened. A stranger at the gate. The gate security radioed Juliana's personal assistant. "Ma, someone is at the gate. He says he must speak to Mr. Sam, or the wedding will be ruined." Juliana, already emotional, tried to brush it off. "Tell him this isn't the time. No interruptions." But something about the man's voice in the background, shouting into the intercom, made Sam turn. "Let me go and see," he said, squeezing her hand. Outside, standing in a black worn shirt and cap, was a man Sam hadn't seen in nearly 10 years. "Maxwell?" Sam muttered. Maxwell Ocon, the same colleague who had testified against Sam during the sabotage case that landed him in prison. The very man who caused his downfall. "Sam, please, listen to me," Maxwell begged. "I need to confess. I lied. They paid me to ruin you. But I can't hold it in anymore. My cancer is back, and I need to make peace with you." Sam's heart pounded. "Why now, after all these years?" he asked, voice shaking. "Because I've seen you rise. I saw the interview. I saw your story. And I knew I couldn't die with the truth locked inside." Maxwell dropped to his knees. "Forgive me, please. I destroyed your life. And I can't forgive myself unless you do." Sam stood there, frozen. Memories rushed back, prison cells, cold nights, begging for justice, losing Juliet, losing his daughters, everything. And now, the man responsible knelt before him. Juliana stepped out and saw them. "Sam, is everything okay?" she asked, walking closer. Sam turned to her. "This is Maxwell. He's the one who ruined me, lied in court, framed me. I lost everything because of him." She looked at Maxwell, who couldn't stop crying. "And now?" she asked softly. Sam took a long breath. "Now. He's asking for forgiveness." The silence between them was thick. Juliana looked at Sam, then at Maxwell, then back at Sam. "Whatever you choose, I'll support you." Sam bent slowly and helped Maxwell up. "I forgive you," he said, tears rolling down his cheek. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Maxwell fell into his arms, sobbing. A moment later, the gate opened wide. The ceremony resumed. The music swelled. 2 flower girls stepped forward, dropping petals as Juliana and Sam proudly walked Amara and Johnson down the dual aisles, each arm holding a child they had once feared they'd never raise to adulthood. Guests wept. Photographers clicked endlessly. Social media exploded. She walked him from under a bridge into her heart, and now they walk their children into forever. At the altar, George and Sandra stood tall, holding back tears as their future in-laws arrived. The vows were deep, the kisses were real, and the dances? Unforgettable. Sam danced like a man reborn. Juliana laughed like a woman finally at peace. After the cake was cut and the couples toasted with their guests, Sam raised a hand. The crowd quieted down. "There's one more thing I want to do today," he said, voice steady over the mic. "Something that's been on my heart for a long time." He turned to Juliana, who stood beside him. "You found me in rags. You knelt before me when I had nothing. You gave me back my name, my dignity, my purpose. I've worn this ring proudly for years. But today, I want to give you a new one." Gasps filled the air. A server brought a small velvet box. Sam opened it to reveal a custom diamond ring, shaped in the image of wings symbolizing flight, freedom, and forgiveness. "Juliana Obina Uche, will you marry me again?" Tears streamed down Juliana's face. 1,000 times, yes. They kissed as fireworks lit up the sky, and the DJ shouted, "From under the bridge to dancing on diamonds." 1 year later, Amara and George gave birth to a baby girl, Amarachi, meaning God's grace. Johnson and Sandra welcomed a baby boy, Emeka, named after Chief Obina, Juliana's father. Juliana held both grandchildren in her arms, crying silently. Sam whispered behind her, "See, the story didn't end with us. It just began again." A few months later, Sam was invited to a national TV program titled Tell It All. Millions tuned in to hear his story. He shared it all, from his rise, his fall, his nights under the bridge, the moment Juliana knelt before him, and how forgiveness led him back to life. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said, voice trembling. "And sometimes, your miracle will come dressed in high heels, standing above your lowest moment." People across the country sobbed, phone lines crashed, but just as the show ended, the host leaned in and said, "We've just received a live call. Someone claiming to be your missing daughter." The screen froze. Sam's eyes widened. Juliana gripped his arm tightly. "My daughter?" "Yes," the host said. "She says she has proof, and she's asking to meet you." The screen faded to black. "I think she's my daughter." The studio went silent. Even the camera crew, usually trained to remain focused, froze. Sam stared at the black screen where the anonymous caller had spoken. His breath quickened. His hands trembled. Juliana, seated beside him, gripped his hand tightly. "Do you think it's really her?" she whispered. Sam's throat was dry. I don't know. I haven't heard her voice in over 15 years. The host, visibly shaken, tried to bring order back to the program. "Ladies and gentlemen, we did not expect this. But the producers have spoken with the caller off-air, and she claims to be Grace Uche, one of the daughters Sam lost when he went to prison." The name alone made Sam's heart skip. "Grace, the younger one," the host continued. "She is outside the studio right now. Would you like to meet her?" Sam could barely nod, but he did, and the doors opened. The girl with the necklace, a young woman, stepped in, slowly, nervously. About 22 years old, dark-skinned, bright eyes, natural hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore a plain blouse and jeans, but there was a quiet strength in her walk. As she approached the stage, she held up a small necklace. Sam's eyes widened. It was a broken gold locket, half of a heart. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the other half bent, faded, but still shining. They had made it together when she was 6 years old. "Daddy's girl forever." Sam stood. She walked closer. They both held up their halves. The pieces still fit, and so did their hearts. Sam dropped to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Grace, is it really you?" She fell into his arms. "Yes, Daddy, I found you." Juliana stood behind them, wiping her eyes, overwhelmed by the full circle she had just witnessed. What happened to Juliet and her sister? As they sat in a quiet room after the show, Grace explained everything. When Sam was arrested, Juliet, her mother, moved them to Abuja. "She told us you abandoned us, that you were a criminal." But Grace always had doubts. One day, she found old letters Sam had written to them, from prison letters Juliet had hidden. That day changed everything. "Mummy left for the UK with my older sister, but I stayed back with Grandma. I promised myself that if I ever found you, I would return that piece of your heart." Sam could hardly speak. Juliana hugged her and said gently, "You didn't just return his heart. You've completed this family." From under the bridge to global stages, word of the emotional reunion spread fast. It made global news. Headlines read, "Billionaire family reunites with long-lost daughter after 15 years. Sam Uche's miracle, from homeless to hero." Sam was invited to speak at international conferences on resilience, redemption, and second chances. He launched a foundation with Juliana called Bridge of Grace, helping wrongfully convicted people rebuild their lives. Grace joined them as a youth ambassador. Johnson, now a lead pilot with the international airline, started a mentorship program for underprivileged kids interested in aviation. Amara, already a rising star in the chemical engineering field, developed a low-cost water purification system that was adopted by 2 West African governments. And Juliana, she became the voice of purpose-driven leadership among African women. Together, the Uche family became a symbol of hope, love, and grace. One quiet night, under the stars, 1 year later, the entire family gathered in their Banana Island mansion's garden. Amarachi, the toddler, played with baby Emeka near the grass. Johnson held Sandra's hand. Amara leaned against George's shoulder. Grace laughed with Juliana over photos, and Sam sat silently under the stars. Juliana joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. He smiled. "About that day, under that bridge, when the world thought I was mad, and you knelt in front of me. Best day of my life," she whispered. Sam turned to her. "Mine too." He held her hand and pointed upward. The stars are brighter tonight, she nodded. That's because you're no longer sleeping under them. You're shining among them. They both sat quietly, watching the sky. No more broken dreams, no more what-ifs, only grace, only legacy. At a global conference in Geneva, Sam stood before thousands. He adjusted the mic and said, "They said I was finished. They said my story had ended when I lost everything. But then, love found me. A woman who gave me her Rolls-Royce, her empire, and her heart. Not because I deserved it, but because she believed in what I could become." To anyone listening today, whether you're on top of the world or under a bridge, your story isn't over. You just need one person who sees the gold beneath your dust. He paused, then added, "And sometimes your second chance doesn't come from heaven. It drives a Rolls-Royce and kneels beside your brokenness." The hall erupted in applause. Juliana, watching from the front row, wiped her tears. Her son was a captain. Her daughter was a changemaker. Her husband was a global voice. Her story was one the world would never forget. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.